to our groundbreaking pop-up live webinar series. Hello, my name is Luke from Equilibrium Risk. In this, our first live webinar series, you can discover a wealth of insights about Martyn's Law, one topic at a time. Each episode is no more than 30 minutes and will unveil a unique a different facet of Martyn's Law, delivering bite-sized, focused learning sessions like never before. But that's not all. In addition to these dynamic webinars, we are also rolling out an exclusive audio event where you can dive in and join the conversation and discuss real-time conversations and be part of this innovative learning experience. So today we are live streaming across our social media channels, LinkedIn and YouTube. I will try and monitor the comments and answer any questions you have. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So today's topic is challenges. What are the unique challenges that manufacturers will face when complying with Martyn's Law? Now, it's worth remembering that when Martyn's Law officially came about, it was aimed at the safety. It was aimed at public events such as music events or sports events. But with the changing of the scope and it affecting manufacturers, manufacturers are likely to face some significant unique challenges compared to sports events and music events. So I hope to cover some of those challenges today. But before we get there, let's have a quick look back. Last week we covered the impacts the new legislation will have on manufacturers, and the week before that we talked about why Martyn's Law will impact UK manufacturers. And if you want to look in detail, I advise you to go back to the previous videos and have a look at those episodes. But to briefly go through it, so Martyn's Law is a symptom of the or I can't think of the word now. Is a repercussion of the Manchester Arena bombing back in 2017. 19-year-old Martyn Het was one of the 22 victims, and his mother, Fagan Murray, has been campaigning for improved security and improved preparedness around public events. And have a look back into why this particularly, have a look back at the previous episode to understand why this new legislation affects Martyn's Law. We also covered let me just share my screen. So the two main criteria is you must have a maximum capacity of over 100, and you must have a business premises that is open to the public. But there are qualifying aspects to that. Firstly, if you host visitors, you host temporary events, you're a museum, gallery or place of interest, or you're an educational facility. And we covered those in a bit more detail in the previous webinar. And then we looked at what the impact will be to Martyn's Law on manufacturers. And it's come out, they've advised a tiered approach. So voluntary tier, standard tier and enhanced tier. And we covered what level of manufacturing facility you would fit into each standard tier. So without further ado, let's get into today's topic, and this is not going smoothly as I hoped. So we're going to cover the unique challenges that manufacturers will face. So remember that this is initially aimed at public events, public spaces. So music events, sports events, and events of locations of that ilk. So those locations are all set up for the control of visitors, attendees, ensuring they arrive at the premises safely and securely, they attend the event safely and securely, and they leave the event at the end of the night in a safe and secure manner. So as you can imagine, the challenges that manufacturers will face in complying with new legislation may be unique. And we're going to cover some of those in a bit more detail. Firstly, manufacturing is a complex environment. So large manufacturers have different buildings dotted around the large site. These buildings will have different access criteria. They do different jobs. They might be noisy environments. They might be dangerous or high risk environments. Even if the manufacturing facility is in one building under one roof, again, there are different, these buildings are, or this building is segregated in different parts. And again, different uses. Again, these parts of the building might have different noise levels. They might have high risk tasks or jobs going on. Manufacturing in general is a complex environment. And if you can imagine some form of terrorist attack, let's look at the example of a marauding gunman or a marauding terrorist with a knife, controlling people, visitors in that environment requires robust planning and robust strategies. Second is access, visitor access. So in addition to my previous comment, how you control visitors in a manufacturing environment can be extremely challenging. From visitors, controlling them out of high risk environments, high risk areas, controlling visitors in unused office spaces, that sort of stuff can be really challenging in a manufacturing environment. So it's something that manufacturers really need to be aware of and have detailed planning. Thirdly is internal communications. So in a sports facility, as I'm sure you're aware, as in a music venue, they have large public announcement systems where they can communicate and convey information very simply across a large area to a large number of people. So if we have a terrorist in the form of using a vehicle as a weapon, that threat can get communicated very quickly, very simply across all attendees to this incident, and we can control the movement of attendees, where to go and where not to go, quite simply. In a manufacturing environment, that's not quite the case. As I've alluded to, it's a complex environment. You'll have different spaces, different buildings, and communicating to the visitors and employees across this space, controlling their movement, telling them where to go and where not to go, can be an extremely challenging job for manufacturers to deal with. As in the case with most crisis response, crisis management, the effectiveness of that response will live and die on the business's ability to communicate. And it's the same with terrorism and responding to a terrorist attack. So last one, large workforces. So manufacturing organizations do have large workforces. Now compare that to sporting events and music events. You may have 50, 100 people controlling a large number of attendees. Now, when we're talking about large workforces, how do you train and raise awareness across that spectrum of employees so they know what to do and how to respond in the event of a terrorist attack? And that's quite a large consideration for manufacturers specifically that they need to face. So bring that slide to an end. So hopefully I've sort of covered some of the unique challenges that manufacturers may face. But particularly, what unique challenge do you think your business will face in complying with this new legislation. Can you think of anything that I haven't mentioned? Please drop it in the comments, and I'll have a look at that. I mean, how would you balance those compliance needs with your operational requirements needs? That's a consideration that probably you need to think about. And don't forget about cost. And how would you manage to balance the cost of these security measures against your existing budgets and resources? What about integrating these security measures, these preparedness plans into your existing security measures and your existing security plan? How would you do that? Again, I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on that. But if you want to dive into this conversation, and don't forget about our exclusive live webinar series where you can engage in real-time discussions and be part of this experience and ask those questions. Our next audio event is tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. Again, broadcasting live across LinkedIn. So if you're on YouTube, pop across to that. It's 1 p.m. Thursday, 25th of January. So don't miss your chance to dive into that conversation. So let's wind this up then. So thank you very much for coming along today. I really do appreciate you watching it. It's to summarize, manufacturers will face unique challenges in complying with this new legislation because it's different from what the legislation was originally aimed at. Complex manufacturing environments, visitor access, internal communication, large workforces, a few of many different considerations that manufacturers will face. I'd love to hear your individual thoughts on that. Again, if you want to dive in, join the conversation, ask questions, then don't forget about our live webinar. Our next webinar next week, next Thursday, again will be live streamed across our social channels, and again it will be held on Wednesday the 31st of January at 9:30 in the morning. The topic will be benefits. So what benefits will complying with the new legislation bring to manufacturers? So it's not all doom and gloom. So we're going to cover some of the benefits that manufacturers will face. And I'll drop a link for that in the comments below, along with the link to the audio event. And so that just leaves me to say thank you very, very much for watching today. Apologize that it wasn't as smooth as I had hoped. A few people knocking on the door. But thank you and goodbye.